now, from the great state of Mississauga in Ontario, Canada, it's the Ted Wallachin Podcast. Brought to you by ETP Canada, providing estate administration with ease. ETP Canada. And Tom's Place, for the finest in men's fashion. Tom's Place will suit you. And now, here's Ted.
Thank you so much, Becky, and welcome everybody to another episode of the Ted Wallachin Podcast. Glad that you've taken the time to join us, and thanks for recommending us to your friends, because I've run into some people who said, my friends recommended me to you, or you to me, or one of those two, but that's what they say. Now this week, my special guest first gained public recognition as a host on Much Music Television. Since then, she's gone on to become a highly sought-after keynote speaker. She's also the founder of M and Amp Company and the Yummy Mummy Club. Her companies have earned her a dozen marketing and leadership awards, including a Governor General Innovation nomination. And joining me is Erica M. It's good to see you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. My God, you have so much energy.
I've had 7 cups of coffee this morning already. You're doing so many different things right now. Let's talk about what are you passionate about?
Oh, what am I passionate about and what my work is are kind of different.
Or is it a
these
combination
days.
of both?
I'm doing a lot of things in work that I really adore, but right now, for the next 6 weeks, I'm very committed to helping Josh Matlow get elected for Toronto mayor.
Mm-hmm.
He's my city councillor, and I've watched the city deteriorate, and it's so concerning to me. And I know Josh. I've watched him over 12 years as my city councillor, and he's a man of, believe it or not, integrity, which is not a word that we usually associate with politicians. Am I right, or am I right, or am I right?
You're right. Now, what are your thoughts about the fact that there are in excess of 100 candidates running? I'm thinking to myself, why bother? Why bother spending the time and effort to get 0.03% of the vote?
Well, I think it's sort of fun to say you're running for mayor. So I don't think that those people who are running are necessarily thinking about what the effect it would have on those of us who have to go and look at a ballot with 100 names on it, which obscures a lot of the people who actually have experience running the city. That's the problem, is this isn't a popularity contest. And this really isn't a joke. This is, people's lives are going to depend on this. This is the future of our city. What kind of city do we want to live in? How are we going to help people who are less fortunate? And how are we going to, build in a city that is livable and enjoyable and doesn't make you feel like yelling every time you go on the subway or afraid to go on the subway? This is a really important job. So I've literally knocked on 3,000 doors, more or less, so far. And I still have 6 weeks of knocking on doors.
Well, is that something that you'd ever consider doing personally, is running for public office?
Nope. I think it's a thankless job. And that's why I'm so grateful that Josh Matlow is giving up his family life to do this. Yeah. I think it takes a lot of courage. And, it's funny, he spoke to the volunteers the other day, and he said, I just want to make something very clear. It's not Josh Matlow for mayor. It's let's find a mayor who will work for the city. This is not an ego thing for him. This is really, I love the city, and someone needs to step up and make evidence-based decisions on the future of the city. And I'm willing to put my personal life on hold in order to do this.
Good for you. Now, given the fact that out of the 102 candidates, there's really only 3 or 4 of them that have any kind of a chance at winning. So to the ones who know they're not going to win, this part of the equation doesn't matter. And that part of the equation I'm talking about is how ugly politics has become. It's the mudslinging, the divisiveness of politics. It would drive me so far away from ever considering running politics.
I am so happy that you mentioned it. And I'm going to tell you something. When Josh said he was running for mayor, he said the first thing that he promises is that he will not do it. He will not stoop to negative campaigning. He will not say a negative word about the people who he's running against. and I saw it in an article in the Toronto Star. They were baiting him to say negative things about Olivia Chow, and he wouldn't do it. He said, she's perfectly lovely and I have the utmost respect for her. I don't like, one of the policies that she's doing, which isn't funded properly. And that seems to be the problem with her campaign. But her as a person, he said, she's absolutely lovely. And that is, those are the kind of people I think that we need to put in positions of power these days, because things have to change. And the only way we change is if we consciously make decisions to support people who think differently.
Hmm. Did you always have this kind of passion for your city?
No, I absolutely did not. In fact, I was thinking that I probably only even started voting maybe 20 years ago. But
Hmm.
what I do have is passion for doing the right thing, and for being authentic, and for telling the truth, and for supporting people who are in my circle who do the right thing. And so that's consistent.
So, for people who are listening, who are thinking to themselves, is this the same Erica M that I used to watch on Much Music Television? Because what happened there in that span of 20 or 30 or 40 years? Well, the
Well,
answer, of course, is obvious. I mean,
lots.
you matured, yeah, and lots has happened. And let's talk about some of the things that you're doing, because I mean, you you're an author, a journalist, a playwright, an award-winning songwriter, a podcaster, and obviously you're outspoken as well. And you've got a couple of companies that you formed over the years. Tell me about them.
Well, basically what I've done since I worked at Much Music, and even you and I knew each other way back in the day.
Mhm.
I've always used my voice to make good things happen. Everything that I do, if you look at it, it will fall sort of under that description. So even when I was 16 years old, I was writing Erica's teen scene column for the local Hudson newspaper. And I was speaking out then about, the teacher strikes and supporting teenagers who were struggling. And I've always been doing it. When I was on Much Music, I was pretty earnest. I was never the party girl. I
Mhm.
always sort of challenged the different rock stars about misogyny and drugs, etc. Like I've always been the same. I've just been doing it in different venues, I guess. And then when I had kids in my late 30s, I really had a difficult time adjusting to motherhood. I'm really A type. I like to have my own time, and I'm pretty selfish. And motherhood really whacked me in the head. So
Mhm.
I started a little website called yummymummyclub.ca,
Mhm.
as well as a TV show called Yummy Mummy.
Yeah.
And those shows and that the website really resonated with other moms, because we told the truth. And the website was written by moms for moms. And it was really the first time that there had been a community like that, because the internet was still young at the time. And then social media started with Twitter and Facebook, and my company was all over it. And so we built a huge following. And then all these brands would come to me and say, "Hey, Erica, we know that you have the voice and the ear of Canadian moms. If we give you a mop, will you tell them about it?" And I was like, "Buddy, what's your budget?" And so
Yeah.
I started an agency called M&Co, which essentially was content marketing before there was such a thing as content marketing, which also grew into influencer marketing before there was influencer marketing. And we're still going.
Let's talk about influencer marketing for a moment here, because in many cases it's been discredited, or people have
Hmm.
proven that the number of followers are greatly exaggerated, and,
Hmm.
and not in every case. I don't want to paint everybody with the same brush, because
Hmm.
there are legitimate people who are out there talking about products, and they are legitimate, and the
Hmm.
products are legitimate. But
Hmm.
a lot of people are out there just figuring this is a great way to get free stuff and get paid for it, and it's just BS.
You are so right. And the industry that I helped build has gone off, and it's become very greedy. And so you have to be able to find individuals, agencies that actually do it in an authentic way, where we find people who don't have the largest numbers, but they actually believe in the product or service, or actually use the product, or actually are in the stage of life where that product or service is relevant. And these days, you don't have to find people with large numbers. You have
No,
to find people with a strong voice and authenticity and creativity. And then you buy media, you pay to have it spread out into the internet. So people who have bought all these fake followers are, they're not part of my business model. The
right.
people who are great storytellers are.
The idea of having people doing endorsements for products, celebrity doing somebody's after me or after you there. Did you hear that siren
Yeah,
there?
it's
Okay,
outside my house. Yeah.
okay, good. Thought it was for me. The idea of having people and celebrities as endorsers has been around for a long, long time, and in many cases, it makes a lot of sense. Now you get into a situation like, for example, today there's a huge hue and cry against celebrities endorsing internet gambling, and some
Mm,
big names like Wayne Gretzky. I mean, a revered name in
mhm.
Canadian sports. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, again, it has to be true to you. If he actually uses it, believes in it, believes that gambling is not a negative thing, then
Hmm.
he can do it. If someone were to ask me if I would use my voice for it, I would say no, because it's not in keeping with my moral code.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it's very hard to tell somebody not to do something, but it is easy for me to decide what I will and won't do.
Right. How old are your kids?
My son is 22 and my daughter's 19.
What do they
Thanks for
do for?
asking.
Well, where do they get their information from? And
Me?
I ask you that. Well, no, because when you think about it, back when you were 22 years old, you got it
Mm,
from reading the Sun, the Star, the Globe, whatever newspapers were around,
mhm.
watching mainstream television, and then eventually cable television came around. They don't read the newspapers. They don't. Most of them don't even
No,
listen to the radio, and
no.
television doesn't exist to them unless it's streamed television.
Yes, and I would say that my daughter is really not educated in what's going around in the world right now. She has tried to turn off social media, and that's where she would be getting a lot of her information.
Hmm.
She does have me that we have a lot of conversations about what goes on in the world. So I try to make sure that if there were any sort of conspiracy theories that have kind of permeated her circles, that we talk about
If
them. Well, really, if, because she's a smart girl. And we have had many conversations about that kind of topic around dinner. My son is the same. They're pretty savvy because I guess I've taught them critical thinking, and that
Mhm.
is I think that's a trait that a lot of people have sort of that has fallen by the wayside. And it is connected to education for sure, but it's also part of the way you're brought up to
Mhm.
question authority, to question what's real, and to know how to go to sources um, that are trustworthy.
Yeah, and that's the most interesting thing I find when I see people posting on social media or even just sending me an email and quoting a source. And in times and literally, I've said to them, by the way, that article that you sent me about whomever it may be, the premier, the prime minister, this source from this newspaper. I don't know if you checked into it, but this newspaper doesn't exist. Somebody just made up the name
Yeah.
um, Vancouver Times, and there is no Vancouver
I was
Times.
actually on the Canadian government's vaccine committee
Hmm.
in the height of the pandemic because they were trying to understand how to connect with moms and
Yeah.
to understand what moms were saying about vaccines because it was a it's hard to go back now to 3 years ago when this pandemic happened and there was terror and not just terror amongst the average person. I am sure that every leader in the world was terrified because their entire economy had to shut down. I mean, this was unheard of.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a worldwide pandemic, and we're now seeing it through the lens of all the bad stuff and all the negative um, uh, comments and the convoy but when you go back to the beginning when it just happened and the terror that people were feeling and the idea of a vaccine being what everybody was just hoping for, And the fact that they actually invented something and brought something to the masses that made a huge difference in the number of deaths that have been prevented by the vaccine.
And
But there's fear. And the problem, absolutely, the government did not communicate properly with people.
no,
And because of that, they pay the price now, because now people don't trust the government.
I think one of the problems was the government didn't know how to communicate because they
I
didn't
agree with
know.
that.
But they didn't know with all due respect, they didn't know exactly what they were dealing with because we
100%.
had never
Mhm.
really stumbled upon something like this before. And so consequently, it's like people were making up things on the fly. And
Yes,
and
they were.
you
Mhm.
can't blame somebody for making a mistake when they make up things on the fly because they have to make up things on the fly because there is no precedent. There's no history to it.
I agree 100%. I really do believe that everyone, including the people who were angry about the vaccines and didn't want to take the vaccine, everybody is just has been trying to do the best that they can with the limited information that we all have.
Yeah.
And we still don't know everything about this really weird disease. Um, my friend Jillian, or Jill Deacon, and my girlfriend Jill, um, they both have long COVID. I mean, they're both completely debilitated. Their lives are in tatters right now
Hmm.
because they're so ill. And this is, months and years after having COVID.
Explain to people who, first of all, don't even believe that such a disease existed, a pandemic such as COVID, what long COVID is, in your understanding.
So, for both my friends, they are fatigued. Like my girlfriend Jillian would sleep 18 hours a day.
Hmm.
She just couldn't get out of bed. And then she would get up and slowly be awake. She'd have some food. She'd maybe do a little bit of work, and then she'd go back to bed.
Yeah.
And Jill Deacon, who's on CBC radio, had to step down from her role. Um, she, I think, has a lot of pain and fatigue. She just is completely ill.
I can understand. I had COVID right near the beginning before vaccines were even available for my demographic. And I ended up spending 10 days in the hospital. Fortunately, it wasn't. I was not in. I wasn't intubated. I wasn't in intensive care, but I
Wow.
was in a COVID room all by myself. Couldn't leave the room. Everybody walked in was covered head to toe in hazmat suits, and I know the feelings for that kind of pain and that kind of exhaustion. I went through that for about 2 3 months, but then eventually I climbed out of it, and I can't imagine what it would be like to have to still to have to still deal with those kind of symptoms on a daily basis. And yet people are out there saying this is all BS. It was just a
Yeah,
flu.
I know. I think it's just fear. I really do. I think people are just trying to rationalize it so that they're not terrified.
Yeah.
And how weird is this conversation? I'll bet you didn't expect to have this conversation with me, Ted. I bet.
No, 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 but I didn't think I'd be talking to you about interviewing David Bowie either.
Oh, well. I didn't. I never interviewed David Bowie.
You're
That's one of
kidding me.
the No, never interviewed him, sadly.
No.
No, I've interviewed many people, and it's probably my favorite thing to do is interview people,
Yeah.
famous or not famous.
Yeah.
But I did not interview David Bowie.
Don't you find that, and I talk to people about this all the time, and they say, well, how do you decide who you're going to talk to? Well, and I said, well, first of all, everybody has a story, at least one.
Yes.
I believe
Yes.
that if you just grab 10 people off the street and told them to for 15 minutes, think about one or two things that happened in their lives, everybody could tell you a story that would blow you away.
100%. Truth is way stronger than, or fact. What is it? Fact is way more. What's it? I'm
I know what you're saying, but
truth is way more interesting than fiction. We all have stories, and unique, compelling stories. Everybody is
hmm
interesting if you take time to just ask the questions and then listen.
yeah.
Have a conversation. Conversations happen when you listen, when you ask a question.
How did you first get involved with much music? How old were you when you first stepped I guess that would have been back on the original studios on Queen East, right?
Yeah, I got a job answering the phones for the new music in 1982. So I was basically Jeannie Becker and JD Roberts' assistant, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
used to book all the shoots, and I worked for Nancy Oliver and John Martin, who were sort of overseeing that. And we very quickly expanded. We had Toronto Rocks, and we also ran the entertainment for City Pulse out of our office.
Mm-hmm.
And then 3 years later, after I worked in a bunch of different places, I got a job on air at Much Music, and I was 23 at the time.
And what were your aspirations at that point?
Well, I was obsessed with the music business. So from the time I was 16, I've been working in the music business. I was managing bands, I was working in record stores, I was DJing in clubs. I mean, I was obsessed. So by
Yeah.
the time I was 23, I knew a lot of people in the industry, and I had a weird amount of experience uh, within the industry, especially for a woman, because there weren't a lot of women in the music industry at that time.
Yeah. Do you still have a passion for music?
Nope, not the same. Nope, not
No?
at all. Nope. It just, I don't know. I like the written word more, I think, and I like storytelling. But no, it doesn't. No, it's weird.
But you can, well, the written word and storytelling go hand in hand in the
Yes,
music industry as well. I mean,
yes,
some of the best musicians or the best acts, I guess you can say, are the ones who can come up with the most compelling lyrics. I mean, when you
100%.
listen to the lyrics of somebody like James Taylor, I mean, there's a man who's telling a story, or Billy Joel for that matter. I mean,
Yeah.
those are real stories, you
And I
know.
like the stories behind the bands as well. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to be part of the industry is I wanted to understand what is it about you that enables you to make this magic? What is the story behind your creativity?
Hmm.
That's the my curiosity, I guess you would call it, about the music industry. But when I hit my 30s, they became a little less interesting because I realized that there wasn't that much thought. A lot of it was either luck or they just had a lot of charisma, but maybe not that much brain power. I don't know. So I just lost interest. It happens. You know, you grow up and there were other things that began to interest me, and thank God, because I have evolved over the years, and it's not like I dislike music, but it doesn't speak to me the same way.
Ted Wallachin returns in a moment.
Have you been tasked with the role of a state executor or expected maybe in the future you will be? Well, if so, let me make your life a lot simpler by introducing you to my friend Debbie Stanley. Debbie is the founder of ETP Canada. They specialize in estate administration. Their goal simply is to help Canadian executors understand their role and how to deal with the loved one's estate. Let's face it, there's no school for this, but ETP Canada offers services such as executor support, estate accounting, and they have a new online course called Executor Ready. It's an engaging video designed to make estate administration easier and affordable. And those are two comforting thoughts during a stressful time. So call Debbie Stanley at 1-866 309-0387. That's 1-866-309-0387. Or you can get her at info@etpcanada.ca. That's info@etpcanada.ca. Fashion to go for men on the go. Hey, it's Ted Wallachin for Tom's Place. If you need to refresh your wardrobe this spring, there is no time to waste. Visit Tom's Place and check out the new spring and summer fashions. At Tom's Place, even the new arrivals are on sale. Spring colors, new patterns, new designs, designer slim fit suits sold elsewhere for as much as $8.99 each are now 3 for $1,200. No, let's check that to 3 for $1,100 at Tom's Place. And if a wedding is on your schedule, we've got a lot of great suits, perfect for your style and your budget. Available in multiple colors, and if you need a matching vest, just ask. Or if you prefer something more formal, how about a tuxedo, starting at only $5.99. Finally, we have selected sports jackets at 50% off. Say hello to spring suit fashions at Tom's Place. Get yourself a deal at Tom's Place on Baldwin Avenue in Kensington Market. We'll suit you.
Now back to Ted Wallachin.
In your bio, it says here that you are an in-demand event host and facilitator.
Yes.
What does a facilitator do? And don't say facilitate.
I go in and I help events come to life.
Mm-hmm.
I like to be the center of attention when someone needs to be the center of attention, but I understand how to take a back seat and give the stage to people who need to tell their story or share information, but I can keep the energy up in a room. I'm really good, kind of like what we're doing right now, but in the opposite way, where I can sort of moderate a panel of people. So I come up with a series of questions and then let everybody have a fair conversation. And when someone tries to overpower the conversation, I have enough confidence to be able to sort of quietly shut them down and bring the other people in. I think it's just a skill that I gained doing live television for so many years, and being able to read people, both on stage and in the audience.
Have you ever moderated a political debate?
I interviewed Jean Chrétien when I was at Much Music, and I'll never forget. I remember I didn't know anything about politics at that time, and I remember asking him the question, how do we know that you're going to keep your promises if you get elected? And he said to me, I will not make a promise that I cannot keep. I have it on tape. And that was the year that he promised not to launch the GST or start the GST or
No,
something,
to get
which he
rid. He
did.
was going to get.
He
He was going to
absolutely,
get rid of it.
yeah, and he completely lied.
Yeah.
So, so that's interesting. If we go back full circle to the beginning of our conversation, when I saw that happen and I realized what a bullshitter he was, and that why is it that all politicians can just lie in order to get elected?
Yeah.
And so as I, became a little more aware, and then I meet someone like Josh Matlow who actually does keep his promises. That's why I'm so passionate. It's because these people don't show up every day.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because you tell that story about Chrétien. Reminds me when I was working at CFRB. There came a time when he refused to do any interviews with anyone on CFRB because somebody had a recording of him saying the same thing. When I'm elected prime minister, I will get rid of the GST. And he didn't, and they played it, and then he got so pissed off, he said, that's it, no interviews for you.
I can't believe that you remember that. That's really exciting for me because sometimes there are moments in my life that really stand out. That was one of them. And sometimes I think, have I exaggerated that? But thank you for confirming that actually happened, and that, it was proof to me that, first of all, people lie, because that was surprising to me. I guess I'm just an ideal. In fact, I am an idealist. And I really thought that people who run for politics were also idealists. But I realized that they're just selfish bastards who want the power.
Some people will say, though, that, okay, yeah, I said that. My intent was to do that. But then I realized as I went down the line that it couldn't be done. So I didn't really lie technically. It was my intent. I
No,
just couldn't
I
fulfill it.
disagree, because if you're going to run on certain policies, you need to have done the research before, and you need to have known that this was possible or not possible. To
Right.
me, that he said something that people wanted to hear, no question about it. And my buddy, Josh Matlow, who's not really my buddy, but the guy who's running for mayor, if you look at his policies, he explains what he's doing, why he's doing it, and how he's going to fund it so he can keep his promises.
So, as someone who has spent their life in communication, you must have laughed out loud when you heard former Ontario Premier Kathleen Wynne refer to a promise that she did not keep as being, well, that was a stretch goal.
You know what? I don't want to swear on your podcast.
You
But
wouldn't be the first.
it's not acceptable. I just really feel like you have to be a person who honors your word.
Yeah.
And if we don't have your trust, and if we can't trust you, we have nothing. And I feel like that is the main problem in our society right now, is no one has trust in anything. We've
Hmm.
lost trust, and that's a scary thing, because what do we hold on to? So of course there's all these people who are taking full advantages of people's mistrust of the government, and they're feeding them information that they know they want them to hear.
Yeah.
And it's scary, and I feel really bad for people who are being bamboozled.
Hmm. Let's switch gears here and talk about an event that you're involved in that is coming up on June 3rd. It's a virtual birthday party from 4:30 till 6 p.m. This year, more people will turn 60 this year than at any other time in history. Is
Yeah,
that
it's
correct?
crazy. I have two friends that are turning 60 in the next 2 months. My husband turned 60 a few months ago. This is our year. And so I was invited to host this really fun party. It's free, it's virtual, and it's for a new community called, it's the steak community. And it's not the food, it's the stake, STAKE, which is like stake your day. That's their
Right.
website, stakeyourday.com. And basically it's nostalgia news and information you can use, directly focused on people born in the 60s.
Hmm.
So they're really trying to grow their community. They already have 5,000 people, and this birthday party is a way to tell people about, the fun that they're hoping to have, and inviting people to join into the celebration. It's free, it's virtual, and I know I'm going to have a lot of fun, because the woman who runs it, Maureen Norman, has given me sort of carte blanche to host this event, almost like a day at Much Music.
Yeah.
So it will be fully entertaining. There's going to be a live band. It's an 80s tribute band called Retro Crush that are
Hmm.
playing. And I'll be giving away a lot of prizes, which sadly I can't win, which is a drag. But I have tickets to Bruce Springsteen. I have
Yeah.
tickets to Depeche Mode, Tears for Fears, the Blue Jays. We
Yeah.
have some rare vinyl that's still sealed. And I think we even have tickets to the Much Music documentary that's airing in September. So lots of great prizes to win. And all you have to do is this sign up at stakeyourday.com, and it's free. You just get to participate.
I'm looking at the press release here. You missed out on one of the prizes as well. It says Leafs tickets.
Oh, well, yeah. I don't know if
Next.
there are. I mean, maybe there are Leafs tickets for next year, but
Yeah,
I don't
probably.
think anybody will be going to any more Leafs games. Sad,
Yeah.
sad
No.
face. Yeah,
Exactly. Is people in the 60s, is that the largest demographic in North America? Let's say.
I believe it is. I think that there is potential for 5.2 million Canadians who are born in the 60s.
Hmm.
It's essentially the next wave of people who will be retiring. And I mean, most of the people I know are not retiring anytime soon, but
Mm.
there is a certain demographic, or let's call it a psychographic, of people who have a lot of things in common. And we also are going to have to band together to, make sure that the government is making sure that we're okay. So, there could be a lot of power if this Stake Your Day community grows, to sort of, tap people like Doug Ford on the shoulder and go, you know what, you're not really taking care of us that well. And we're a pretty big organization now.
Yeah.
So we'd like you to change what you're doing. But hopefully he'll be gone soon. So that won't actually be a problem in a few
Well,
years.
I find it painfully ironic that the largest demographic, which is it's the baby boomer generation, is the one demographic that is most ignored by the advertising industry.
Oh,
The
yeah, that's
advertising
super funny.
industry always saying,
Hmm.
"Well, we got to get those 25 to 35-year-olds." 25 to 35-year-olds don't have the money that 65-year-olds do.
Or the time. They
Yeah.
don't have the time. So, I mean, I know that, for example, my girlfriend bought my mom's website, Journeywoman. Journeywoman is a website that's squarely focused on women who travel, 50 plus women who travel solo. And this is a huge market because a
Mm,
lot of people who, when they turn 50 and 60, have been waiting to raise, they've raised their kids, they've earned their money, and now they want to go explore. And yet the advertising is always focused on younger people. And it's like, why are you doing that? I
I
mean,
know.
maybe because they look better in the ads. I don't know. But they're not buying stuff because they're all cash strapped.
It's kind of like the situation with Lisa LaFlamme. There are all kinds of theories as to why Lisa LaFlamme was let go from CTV. One of them being bandied about is the fact that she was just too old, and yet here's a woman that was serving her demographic. The people who watch CTV news are not 25-year-olds;
Yeah,
they're her
I
age.
don't think that that was, you know what? I think that's kind of bullshit. I think that there's sorry, I just swore again. Sorry about that.
That's
But I think it's probably um also financial. My guess is that she has been working
oh
for the
yeah,
company for a long time,
oh
and
yeah,
I'm guessing that her pay was very high,
yep,
and they were looking for an excuse to cut their budget because, as you said, no one's watching anymore. And so they get someone who is, when we say younger, I just mean someone who is less expensive
hmm,
to take the role because, in the world of broadcast, everyone wants, not everyone, but, pretty much anyone would like a job on TV, people who have been in the industry for a while, and they'll take a significantly lower pay than Lisa would.
yeah.
So that's my assumption. I think it's a red herring, the fact that she's older, because it doesn't make sense. You're right. Everybody who watches the news is older.
Yeah, exactly. And it's an interesting thing because when you look now and you see the state of media, mainstream media, whether it be radio or whether it be television, you're seeing veteran individuals disappearing off the screen and off your radio dial, and you think to yourself, are they really retiring? And of course, they always say that they are. And I've had so many of them that I've interviewed on this podcast. I said, "Did you retire?" Nope. Did you retire? Nope. Was that your choice? Nope. But they can never say that uh, until time has gone by, and it's
Yeah,
and
but
it's
it's
a
the
real
same.
shame.
It's all about money. Come on, Ted. Like
And
that's
well,
it's
oh, I
all it
know that.
is. It's they're not replacing these people with let's, in quotation marks, better people. They're replacing them, if they are even being replaced, by less expensive people with
Well, what do
fewer
you?
demands.
But what are you telling people who want to get into radio, who want to get into television, who are graduating from Humber and from Seneca, etc.? What do you tell them about their future? Say, okay, listen, get ready to make as much money as you humanly possibly can till you're about 45, and then get ready to get your ass kicked out the door.
No, I wouldn't even say that. I think that people are making good money out on their own. I think that in your day, my day, early on, you had to be hired by a mainstream company in order to have a job. But the jobs aren't with mainstream anymore. There's
No.
all kinds of micro broadcasters, I think,
Hmm.
who are making money with less overhead, and so they can make more money. And it's really, the future is to be an entrepreneurial broadcaster in
Yep.
some shape or form. We all know that people aren't going to stay with the same company for years, like our age group might have done, or our parents' age group might have done. It's a lifestyle of pivoting and hustling and reinventing, and that's the kind of stuff I talk about when I do keynotes. Those are the things that I think need to be shared, and I think, to me, that's very exciting because you really are more in control of your life if you understand how to be an entrepreneur and understand that when an opportunity ends, that you have the skills to be able to reinvent yourself and keep on going.
And that's one of the keys right there is that you have to develop skills, plural.
Yes.
Because if you're one of those people who wants to get into radio just because you love music, stay tuned. Those opportunities may not exist by the time you get there, or if they
Oh
are, they
yeah.
could be minimalized because
No, no.
now
And
you've got one person voicing, doing a radio show on 15 radio stations or 150 radio
well,
stations in the
Ted,
case.
there's also AI is about to take over. And so they're going to replicate, they'll take someone's voice who they have a contract with and they'll just AI it. And they'll just get them the computers to read the scripts. So there's going to be very, very few jobs like that
Yeah.
in mainstream media. Honestly, it's you just have to you have to be aware of the reality of the world and be armed, be knowledgeable, read the news, read what's going on, and upskill, keep on upskilling. That's the future. And you know, while radio may not be a job in the future, there will be other ways or other places where they'll need people to communicate. And
Hmm.
so you just have to be flexible, fluid, reinvent. All those words are very important right now. So I try and embed those ideas into my kids. It's like, Mom, I want to do this. I go, fantastic. And also keep your mind open for this, and this, which are loosely connected to what you're interested in. Because the world is changing quicker now than ever before, and it will never change this slow again. So hang on. It's all about change.
And learn a trade, because eventually you'll be paying $385 for a plumber to walk into your house.
You know what? It's and you're not wrong.
I know.
There are a lot of skills that require humans to things for humans to build and do that a robot cannot do. And those are worth pursuing for sure. And even if it doesn't tick the box in terms of fulfilling your artistic needs, it will pay the bills, and you can do art on the evenings and weekends or on every second day whenever you decide to go into work. You can build the life that you want, but you have to work.
You're right. Let's get back to this. Give some folks some information from your friends at Stake about the event that's going on June 3rd from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. The best way for people to get involved in this is
Simple. Go to Stake Your Day. That's STAKE, stakeyourday.com. And you sign up to be a part of the community, and that you'll get instructions on how to participate and register for the virtual party. You'll get all the details about your giveaways. And the only way you can win all these fantastic prizes that I want to win is by being a subscriber of Stake Your Day. Come on, I'd love to go see Tears for Fears. That would be awesome.
I'd love to see Springsteen.
Yeah, yes, I've seen him several times.
Well, I'm sure you have.
The tickets are
You
just so expensive now that
That's another thing too.
after you've seen someone a few times, it's like I'm not going to do it again.
Well, my producer Becky Coles, who's listening to us right now, you can chime in if you want, Becky. How many times has your mom seen Springsteen?
Oh, by the end of this summer, she'll have seen him 18 times,
Oh my God.
which makes my 5 times seem really inconsequential compared to hers.
I mean, she does have good taste. He's a lovely guy, super talented, really cares about his audience,
Yeah.
always puts on a fantastic show. So she has great taste. I'm just too cheap.
For people who want to get in touch with you, Erica, and benefit from all your knowledge and your abilities and your educational offerings, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, I'm on all the social platforms at Erica M, and I have a website. You go to ericam.com and say hi.
Just like that.
Oh, and vote for Josh Matlow for mayor. Come on, Ted.
I can't. I live in Mississauga. I could, but it would be illegal. And then
Don't
I'd
do
have
that.
to
Don't do
lie
that.
to you and say that I didn't. And then you'd say, see, even Ted's a liar. And then you'd throw that in my
Well,
face.
I appreciate you letting me, talk about it because I have to leave now to go to Canvas. I'm knocking on 200 doors this evening.
Knock away and enjoy. Thanks very much for
Thank
spending
you.
some time with us. It was a real pleasure chatting with you after
Thank
all
you
these
so
years.
much. Yes, it was nice to chat.
And thank you to all of you for tuning in and listening. And we hope that you'll join us again next week. And if you get a chance, drop by our website, www.tedwoloshin.ca. And there you will find a listing of all of our previous episodes. You can listen back to all of them. You can sign up and share your comments and thoughts with us. We would appreciate that. Also appreciate going online and check out the organ and tissue donation opportunities. You could change or even save a life. Have a great week.
The Ted Wallachin Podcast has been brought to you by ETP Canada, providing estate administration with ease. And Tom's Place, for the finest in men's clothing at unbeatable prices. It's Tom's Place at 190 Baldwin in the heart of Kensington Market. Tom's Place will suit you. The Ted Wallachin Podcast is produced by Becky Coles. That's me. Technical production by Paul Gatt. Music by Bike Thieves. To talk to Ted and for more information on his podcast and our sponsors, go to www.tedwallachin.ca.